Hey everyone, how's it going? So UFC Fight Night Whittaker versus Dorita just wrapped up this weekend. I'm going to go through the card and give you guys a recap and breakdown of everything that happened this event. So let's get straight into it. And opening up this card on the prelims was Buday versus Marcus Buchecha. So I had it that Marcus Buchecha was going to win this one by a round 1 submission win. I just thought the grappling was going to be way too dominant for someone like Buday. The fight ended up going to a decision, however, and Buday actually managed to pull this one off in a pretty decent win here. Round 1 opens up, instantly Buchecha just trying to take Buday down, and for the most part he's really struggling with all forms of grappling. Buday's constantly denying the takedown shot from Buchecha, which he shot quite a few in this first round. And at the end of the round, Buchecha does land some big shots, but consistently Buday's landing the biggest shots this round, constantly denying those takedowns. Most likely took that round just because of that. Round 2 starts off on the feet, but there's not much thrown, and then early in the round Buchecha gets Buday down, and for the most of the round he holds dominant positioning, constantly landing ground and pound, threatening submissions at different points, but not really locking anything that tight. Near the end of the round, Buday does reverse position and manages to hold top mount for the last 30 seconds, but it's really not enough to take back the round. One apiece going into the third, which opens up on the feet, which is very heavily beneficial to Buday. He's landing the better shots, clipping Buchecha with big shots whenever he'd duck in for takedowns. And even on the ground, for a lot of this round, Buday managed to get top control and hold Buchecha down. In the final minute, Buchecha did reverse position and tries to land some pretty big ground and pound to sort of finish Buday, but he's very gassed. Both fighters were really gassed in this third round. Nothing much of damage was done, and as a result, the bell goes. Buday takes a 29-28 decision. Not the most fun fight ever. It was just pretty average. Decent win for Buday though. I thought Buchecha was going to sort of steamroll him in the grappling, but Buday sort of showed levels. But yeah, good fight to start the card, nothing amazing though. Next up is Mohammad Yahya versus Stephen Nguyen. So I had it that Stephen Nguyen was going to win this one by a decision win. I was correct with him winning this one. Stephen Nguyen did win this one, but it was actually by a very impressive second round doctor stoppage where the whole fight was just complete domination. In the first round, almost instantly, Yahya gets dropped pretty much out the gate. With this overhand right, and while he does survive and get back to the feet, shortly after he gets dropped again with a left hook. And it's clear that Yahya is really hurt from the start of this fight, and consistently through this round he is just constantly hurt. The shots are putting him on wobbly legs. He gets dropped again midway through the round with a right hand against the cage, and whenever he'd sort of get to recovering, Yahya would just, Nguyen would hit him with this shot that would send him back on wobbly legs. And Yahya keeps throwing shots at getting him caught with counters and hurt against the cage. He throws this really slow flying knee that Nguyen countered to knock Yahya down once again. And in the last 40 seconds, Nguyen knocked Yahya down, but this time it looked like he finished him. He sort of started celebrating because Yahya was on the ground really hurt. Ref didn't stop the fight. Keeps going, and when you think it couldn't be possible that he gets knocked down again, he borderline gets knocked down the last 10 seconds and almost submitted with a rear naked choke, but the bell goes off, saves him. Definite 10-8 round for Nguyen. Yahya looked absolutely hopeless in this first round. Round 2, early in the round, it actually looks like Yahya's going to come back. He lands a counter on Nguyen that pushes when Nguyen's pushing him up against the cage, stumbles Nguyen, knocks him backwards, but shortly after Yahya gets dropped himself and ends up on bottom position eating some big ground and pound shots. And when they return to the feet, Yahya's left eye's just swollen up badly. And for the rest of the round, he's getting caught with shots that he's not seeing, visibly dazing him, causing him to get dropped again and again in this round. And when the round ends, the doctors jump in, stop the fight, which is very understandable with the swollen eye. It was one of the worst swollen eyes I've seen in a while. And realistically, even outside of that, the fight probably should have been stopped in the first round. They let him fight on, I get it, he's the hometown fighter. But either way, this was his complete domination. Yahya didn't look amazing in this fight, constantly got dropped. Let Nguyen get the record for the most knockdowns in the UFC fight. So this one was a really good fight, complete domination, really fun. I don't really know how good Nguyen is after this win. We need to see his next performance, but yeah, complete domination. Following that is Aslan versus Billy Elekana. So I had it that Aslan was going to win this one. I said by round 1 KO because I just thought on the feet his striking would be that little bit better, and he also had that finishing potential that I thought Elekana lacked. I was actually wrong. Billy Elekana took this one by a decision win. It actually made it to a decision, which I didn't expect either. Pretty uneventful fight overall. So the first round opens up very, very low volume. Aslan isn't really throwing anything this whole round. And Elekana, on the other hand, he's staying on the back foot and he's constantly sending leg kicks down or sort of front kicks to the body, teep kicks. Just really mixing it up with his kicks, and he was the only one throwing and landing. Aslan didn't really do anything, and that's probably what won Elekana that first round. Second round opens up, same thing as the last. Elekana's just looking that slight bit busier on the feet. Aslan's not really throwing anything. He does start letting the hands go a lot more this round, but everything he throws isn't coming close to landing. They're big shots, they're just not even landing on their target, so not much for him to score on based on this round. But midway through the round, Elekana shoots him for a takedown, and Aslan ends up tagging with some big shots while denying the takedown. And from there, he did pick up a good shot every now and then this round. Likely taking this round, but once again, very, very slow, low volume round, so kind of hard to score for. And then in the third round, the only notable thing that happened this round is when midway through the round, Elekana lands a nice two-piece combo to the head of Aslan, had him hurt and like stumbling around a little bit, and also managed to cut above the eyebrow of Aslan. But outside of that, nothing much. It goes to the cards. Aslan acts surprised when Elekana takes a 29-28. Like, he didn't do absolutely nothing the whole fight, didn't throw anything, didn't really look busy at all, even make an argument for himself to win. Granted, not an amazing performance from Elekana either, but really, really bad, low volume fight. Yeah, not much else to say about this one. Moving on from that, we had Amanda Ribas versus Tabatha Ricci. So I added that Amanda Ribas was going to take this one by a decision. I thought it was going to be pretty close, but I thought that Ribas would just look that little bit better in each area of the fight and slowly just take that decision through just being a bit busier. I was actually wrong. Tabatha Ricci took this one, and it was by round 2 TKO, which is probably one of her best wins to date, with the rest of her sort of resume being close-ish decisions outside of her loss to Yang Xiaonan. So in this fight, round 1, very scrappy start to the fight with both sort of throwing big punches towards each other. Nothing really that damaging. They're just sort of throwing wildly, landing quite a bit as well. But Ribas was looking that little bit better. She was sort of using her range to stay on the back foot and land at distance with the stiff jabs. And her reach was sort of giving Ricci a bit of issues throughout this fight. Damage wise though, it was pretty even. Ricci was landing the bigger shots, it's just that she was landing a bit less often. And ultimately it was Ribas' 2 takedowns this round, judo throwing Ricci to the ground with her signature sort of judo style. That won her this round. She didn't really get that much ground control, it was more just the 2 takedowns that won her this, but still, decently close round. Second round opens up and we're starting to look a bit like the first. Ribas was looking a little bit better on the feet. Ricci was kind of struggling until Ricci got her up against the cage. And against the cage, Ricci just starts landing these elbows directly to the face of Ribas. They were more specifically sort of landing to the orbital eye, sort of the right eye orbital bone section of the face. And with the third one, Ricci covers up, drops to the ground, not really out of sort of dazed or about to be finished sort of way. It was more like the pain sort of amounted from getting elbowed in such sort of a sensitive area as the eye. It was kind of like an eye poke that was legal. But Ricci jumps in, starts landing these massive shots in the ground and pound, unloads the gas tank a bit, and finds a finish with the ref stopping the fight in the second round. Very, very impressive win for Tabatha Ricci. I didn't really expect this one from her. Will she look this good in the next fight? Who knows? This could be a new and improved Ricci. Ribas also looked very good, but ultimately it was those elbows that gave her that issue. So yeah, decent fight. Next fight on the card. Up next is Davey Grant versus Damon Blackshear. So I added that Damon Blackshear was going to take this one by round 3 submission win. I just thought his grappling was going to be a bit too much for Grant. And while Grant was going to give him issues on the feet, I thought it would ultimately come down to that factor. I was actually wrong. Davey Grant took this one by a decision win, which is kind of surprising with how the first round went, but it was still a very good win for Davey Grant. That proves that he can still tussle with the best of bantamweight. So round 1 opens up very early in the round. Blackshear takes the fight to the ground, where Grant slowly starts to make his way back to the feet, but Blackshear uses the opportunity to take the back, and from there he just controls him. The rest of the round, Blackshear controls Grant with back control, almost catches him with a face crank midway through the round that he was starting to like get in tight, but he'd escape it. He tried an armbar as well. Didn't quite get that either, but just for the rest of the round he held the back, made sure his body triangle was in tight, would use submissions to distract Grant to sort of make sure he was in that dominant position, and took that round very clearly through the wrestling. Round 2, back on the feet, Grant starts to look a lot more comfortable. He's constantly tagging Blackshear with big shots to the body, clean combinations to the head. Meanwhile, Blackshear's not really throwing anything back, and every time he'd shoot him for a takedown, it gets sprawled, where back on the feet, Grant would just be unloading these heavy shots on him, taking the round very decisively. It was a really good sort of comeback round for Grant here, and the energy just continued into the third. Blackshear is still not really throwing anything. It's not really enough to overcome the constant volume of Grant, whatever he does throw. And Grant was just constantly ripping these big hooks that he'd land to the head and body. And while Blackshear kept attempting to get the fight to the ground in the second half of this round, Grant just kept stuffing the takedowns and gave Blackshear no really other option than to strike on the feet, where he was losing quite clearly. He was getting damaged, especially near the end of this round, with these massive hooks to the side of the head, ripping to the body as well in his close combat encounters. And ultimately it went to the decision. Grant took a 29-28 decision over Blackshear, with Blackshear really finding no success outside the first round and really struggled to stay on the feet with Grant. With Grant slowly picking it up as the fight went on. This one was also a really fun fight. Yeah, not much else to say about it though. Next fight on the card. Next up is Muslim Salikhov versus Carlos Leal. So I said that Carlos Leal was going to take this one by round 2 KO. I just thought that as the fight went on, he'd pressure forward, get him against the cage where he'll unload a barrage of shots that would eventually cause him to wilt and put Salikhov down. I was actually wrong. Muslim Salikhov took this one, and surprisingly it was actually by a first round KO, which makes it 2 in a row now. He is riding a very hot streak at the moment. So in the first round of this fight, very strong start from Leal. He's pushing forward from sort of the bell and keeps getting Salikhov up against the cage, where he'd unload maybe 1 or 2 big shots before backing up again, circling around, trying to cut him off, where he'd blitz in again, land these 2 shots and then back off again. But it was midway through the round when Leal starts loading up to throw this big shot. Salikhov's against the cage and he unleashes this nasty counter right. It was super fast. Honestly, if you blinked, you could have missed it. It lands clean on the head of Leal, puts him down, folds him over, has him out badly. Salikhov taking a first round KO, which is surprising because I thought his wheel kick KO from last fight was sort of a fluke, with the rest of his record not really being that full of finishes. But man, he looked really, really good this fight. Outside of that, he did look a bit concerning with how often he was getting backed up to the cage, but the way he unleashed that hook out of nowhere, super fast, connected cleanly, and the power behind it. Salikhov is a really good striker, and I'm very excited to see what's next for him. Leal, on the other hand, unfortunate performance. He was looking really good, but got clipped, got put away. Needs to sort of lock in on defense a bit more. But yeah, this was a really good finish, really fun fight. Next fight on the card. And closing out the prelims was Bryce Mitchell versus Saeed Nurmagomedov. So I added that Bryce Mitchell was going to win this one by round 3 submission. I just thought in the wrestling he would have that slight advantage this fight, and I think that his move down 2 bantamweight would allow him to out-physical Saeed Nurmagomedov. I was actually correct. Bryce Mitchell won this one. It wasn't by a submission though, it was by a decision, and it was close if you count that first round, but still a very, very good win for him here. So the first round, strong start from Nurmagomedov. He starts landing cleanly on Mitchell from the start whenever Mitchell would try and pressure forward, land his own shots. Saeed would sort of back up and kick him to the head or land this 1-2 jab straight combo. And outside of that was denying a lot of the attempts from Mitchell early on to get the fight to the floor. A large part of the round was spent with Mitchell clinching Nurmagomedov up against the cage, though he did score quite a bit of control time in this first round. But what really won the round for Nurmagomedov was midway through the round, Mitchell gets caught with a knee straight down the middle, dropped him badly. Mitchell was on the ground, hurt. He pulled guard. Saeed tried to dive in and finish, but he got caught in the guard, which allowed Mitchell to sort of recover on bottom position for the rest of the round. But Mitchell couldn't get back to the feet for the rest of the round, stayed on bottom, didn't have enough time to make a statement to win the round back. So Nurmagomedov took that round quite clearly, just through that knockdown. Round 2 opens up, and as soon as the round starts, Mitchell pressures Nurmagomedov up against the cage, where he takes him down. Nurmagomedov does try to lock in a guillotine, but he doesn't quite get it in that tight, and he manages to escape. And Mitchell just sits on top position for a large part of the round, constantly threatening that left arm of Nurmagomedov with either a Kimura or an Americana. Nurmagomedov had to sort of have it out straight so he wouldn't get put in either of those. Midway through the round, Saeed does manage to reverse position, tries to get control time of his own, but Mitchell very quickly gets it back to the feet, manages to get Nurmagomedov up against the cage twice more, and he doesn't let Saeed get anything off on the feet before taking him down twice. Very, very good comeback round for Mitchell. He dominated the wrestling that round, took it quite clearly. And then the third, from the start of the round, Mitchell was constantly trying to get Saeed to the ground. And on one of his attempts, he gets caught in this really tight guillotine, similar to what he almost got caught in the second, but this time it was in quite tight. But he accepts it, takes him down fully without trying to fight the guillotine midway through, and then once on the ground managed to slip out of it and reverse position, holds top position for a large part of the round before taking the back of Nurmagomedov. Tries to get back to the feet, threatens submissions though the whole time, and when the decision's read, Mitchell takes a 29-28 decision and could be looking at a ranked opponent at bantamweight. Saeed sort of outside that top 15. I think after this he will get like a bottom ranked 15, maybe Vinicius Oliveira, maybe Kyler Phillips, something like that. But yeah, very impressive fight from Mitchell. I think he actually looks a lot better at bantamweight. His wrestling is a lot more out physicality his opponent than it was at featherweight, where it was sort of grappling in between, but also he was forced to strike at times. But yeah, very good performance from Mitchell here in his debut at bantamweight. And now we move on to the main card, and opening up the main card was Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. So I said that Bogdan Guskov was going to take it by around 2 TKO. I just thought that he had a bit more finishing potential than Krylov, who often makes it to competitive decisions, but doesn't really finish his fights early. So I was correct with this one. Bogdan Guskov did win the fight. It was actually by around 1 TKO, which was a bit more impressive than I thought it was going to be. So the first round, very slow first half of the round from Guskov. Krylov is primarily winning just through constantly pushing forward, kicking different parts of the body, landing here and there to the head of Guskov with shots. But it wasn't really anything that was that fight impacting. As the round went on, Guskov did start to pick up his striking. He started pushing Krylov back at points with sort of counter shots and landing combos whenever Krylov would sort of back up. But was also being backed up for the majority of the round, constantly being put on the back foot. And with a minute left in the round, Guskov lands this big counter straight out of nowhere. Krylov does often leave himself open, which is a bit of an issue, which happened here. Got caught badly with his counter straight, dropped him badly, had him almost out, to which Krylov dives in, finishes him with some big ground and pound in the style that we're used to seeing from someone like Guskov. Very impressive first round finish for Guskov. Krylov didn't look amazing here. Sort of the same issue with the Reyes fight, where he left himself too open and got caught, and from there just couldn't recover. Yeah, Guskov, very impressive first round finish. And next up was Almabayev versus Jose Ochoa. So I said that Almabayev was going to take this one by a decision win. I saw that Ochoa was going to have moments on the feet. I said that sort of he would give him issues as the fight went on the feet, but ultimately it was going to be Almabayev constantly taking him down, constantly controlling him and wrestling his way to a decision win. And that's pretty much what happened here. Almabayev took this one, decision win, 30-27, but there were moments where it was kind of competitive. So first round opens up, and initially it looks like Ochoa might be able to keep the fight standing. He sprawled Almabayev's first takedown attempt and managed to stay on the feet up against the cage for a decent bit while Almabayev's take him down, but Almabayev manages to get Ochoa down. Ochoa does get up to his credit pretty quickly afterwards, but shortly after that gets his back taken, gets continuously taken down from there, and Almabayev just controls him with back control for the rest of the round. Almost submits him with a face crank, but doesn't manage to sort of get it in. Tries again, doesn't manage again. It was sort of causing a lot of pain. There was that. In the end of the round, it does go back to the feet. Ochoa lands some big shots and takes the back of Almabayev in the last sort of 30 seconds, but probably not enough to overcome a good 90% of the round in control time from Almabayev. He definitely takes that first round. Round two, Ochoa starts around very strong. He keeps it standing for a bit, lands some good strikes of his own, but then he throws a kick which he manages to get taken down off of, and then from there Almabayev just keeps taking Ochoa down. Racked up a lot of control time by holding top position or controlling the back, and with Almabayev taking half the round in control time at the end, it's another round for Almabayev. Third round looks like a good round for Ochoa. Once again, Ochoa just dominates in the striking, but it just never really stayed there for long enough for him to make a point to take any of the rounds. Ochoa does actually catch Almabayev with a guillotine this round while getting taken down, but unfortunately, because he jumps the guillotine when he had it on the ground, which he had it in very tight, could have submitted him, but Almabayev breaks out, and because he jumped the guillotine, he ends up on bottom position for most of the round, getting controlled, not in dominant positioning. And with a minute left in the round, it returns to the feet, and Almabayev for some reason points to the ground, and instead of striking, pretty much immediately shoots him for a takedown, which I'm so tired of seeing fighters try and recreate the Max Holloway point down at this point. It's a dead horse. They keep beating it. Half of them don't even do it correctly or don't commit to it. And it ends up going to a decision. Almabayev takes a 30-27. There were moments where if it stood staying on the feet, I could see Ochoa sort of taking a round just. But unfortunately, Almabayev's wrestling was just too much for Ochoa. Ochoa is still very good. I'm very excited to see what's next for him. Almabayev probably will be fighting around top 5 ranked soon. Ochoa will definitely sort of bounce back and make his way to the top 15, but this just wasn't the opponent for him. But this was it was an alright fight. It wasn't anything too amazing. Up next was Shara Magomedov versus Marc-Andre Barriault. So I said that Shara Magomedov was going to get this one done by around 1 KO. I just saw this as sort of a layup for him, where Marc-Andre Barriault is a bit chinny at times. A lot of fighters have put him out very early in their fights. A lot of fighters worse than Shara Magomedov as well, like Justin Solfit. So I was worrying for him here. Shara Magomedov did win this one. He got a decision win instead, which I was kind of surprised about. And there were moments where it seriously looked like Shara Magomedov was going to lose this fight. This was a real reality check for him. So the first round, Barriault is constantly moving forward on Magomedov while taking some very big damage in form of leg kicks. But he doesn't back down. He even manages to take Magomedov down 2 minutes into the first, with Magomedov grabbing the cage to stand back up again. But if he didn't, I could have seen Barriault racking up a decent bit of control time, possibly even winning the round off that. But when they return to the cage in a clinch, it's Magomedov who lands a way better knees, elbows, that are sort of damaging Barriault, putting him back on the back foot again, stopping him from pushing forward, which Magomedov was really having trouble dealing with the Barriault who would march forward, take the damage, but then also give off his own. And from there, Magomedov lands some better shots. He, both with the kicks at distance as well as his elbows in the clinch this round, just takes it. But if that takedown went to wrestling, I seriously could have seen an argument for Barriault winning. Round 2, Barriault starts picking it up with his kicks and even starts letting his hands go a little bit. He pushes forward, having Magomedov up against a cage for decent bits of the fight. Midway through the round though, Magomedov lands this big elbow that cuts Barriault open, and Magomedov just keeps nailing that same spot over and over again, just trying to make the cut bigger and bigger on the forehead of Barriault. But shortly after that, Barriault lands a big right hand directly on the nose of Magomedov that followed up with some big uppercuts, other big shots in the clinch, ripping to the body, and it had Magomedov seriously hurt. In fact, it looked like he was about to be put away. It busted the nose open badly, had Magomedov breathing through his mouth for the rest of the fight, which caused him to keep the rest of the fight very close and competitive, and it was a real sort of reality check for him. From that point, Barriault keeps pressuring, continuously hurting Magomedov with shots to the head, hurting the body as well, finishing the round with a takedown as well on top of that. There was a moment in the closing seconds when Magomedov started swinging, but Barriault up against Barriault against the cage, and had him decently hurt, but I don't think this was enough to win back the round, especially after such a big shot directly to the face that almost dropped him. So definitely a round 2 for Barriault. And then in the third round, the front leg of Barriault is just constantly taking damage. You start to see that amount as Magomedov just keeps leg kicking him for those first 2 rounds, and then in the third it was really starting to bother him. And then from there, Magomedov was landing big, especially with elbows and knees at close range in the clinch. And when it goes to the decision, Magomedov eventually takes it by 30-27, which I think is a bit generous. I think you got to give Barriault that second round, but granted, Shara did land his own big shots. But even though Shara won, not a great performance. I thought everyone thought he was going to absolutely dominate Barriault in this one. I thought Barriault was sort of a lamb to the slaughter here. And Magomedov didn't really do anything that really proved to me that he's ready for top 15 yet. So while it was a good win, it was a pretty violent, scrappy fight as well. I think this probably won fight of the night. Magomedov, man, he definitely needs another tune-up before he makes his way towards that top 15. Barriault actually looks surprisingly good compared to his usual performances, so I'm actually also excited to see what's next for him. But yeah, this was a fun fight, but man, concerning for Magomedov. And now we arrive at the co-main event, Petr Yan versus McGhee. So I said that Petr Yan was going to take this one by a decision win. I just thought he was going to be that bit better for McGhee, and I thought this was sort of a tough challenge for McGhee, who is just now entering the top 15 off a pretty average performance against Martinez. And I was correct, Petr Yan won this one, just primarily through picking up as the fight went on. McGhee looked a bit outclassed in this one, and Petr Yan took this one by a very clear-cut decision win. So breaking it down, the first round, Jan takes his time. You can really tell that he's feeling out this first round with McGhee. He's keeping his range, keeping up that long guard, sort of getting a feel for McGhee's patterns. But at the same time, he is also tagging McGhee every now and then. He's also targeting the leg quite a bit of McGhee, which starts to sort of do a bit of damage as the fight went on. But as the round went on, McGhee really picked it up and was landing hard on the head of Jan with combinations that were starting to show a bit of damage. But Jan was just always firing back, keeping it competitive. McGhee did more damage with his shots, so should be noted, especially in the closing seconds of this round where he tagged him with a decent bit of combination shots and big shots out, like big right hands. But the round would likely go to McGhee, even though it was decently close. Second round opens up and Jan starts turning it on in this round. He finds his distance, starts landing combos before dipping out of the way of any counter shots that McGhee would throw back. And while McGhee would occasionally land a big shot here and there, Jan was just constantly picking away at McGhee, landing big and hurting McGhee later in the round. He'd constantly land a right hand that would sort of stumble McGhee backwards or have him dazed and backing up towards the fence, dropping his guard down. And this was a way more clear round for Jan. McGhee's still putting up a decent fight here and there. He's dealing some damage, but Jan was just landing more, landing harder, even cutting open McGhee in this round. And especially in the clinch, he was just dominating McGhee on the feet. And then the third round, Jan had fully switched on at this point. He was landing in long combinations on McGhee, hurting all parts of the body and dazing McGhee with these big shots. And while a big part of the round was spent in a cage clinch, Jan got a really sort of slick takedown with one of his signature trips, racking up some more points on the judges' scorecards after that. But outside of that, it was Jan sort of holding McGhee up against the cage, nailing him with knees to the back of the leg. And in the final 30 seconds, Jan gets another really clean trip on McGhee, almost secures a Kimura, but the bell goes off. It goes to the decision. Jan takes it 29-28. McGhee only really won that first round through just looking that slight bit better, but man, this was a vintage Jan performance. I'm really excited to see what's next for him. In fact, I think he should get the belt next. He's on a 3-fight win streak now. Granted, McGhee's not the toughest opponent, but still, maybe run him up against Shaw in a rematch. But after that, that's definitely got to be a shot at the belt. But yeah, I think McGhee also did pretty well, but I think Jan needs that next shot at the belt. McGhee, on the other hand, maybe a bottom 15 opponent. I'm not too sure. Honestly, maybe even an unranked at this point. Who knows? But this was a very fun fight. This was probably one of the better fights of the night. And yeah. And now on to the main event, Robert Whittaker versus Reinier de Ridder. So I said that Robert Whittaker was going to take this one. I said by round 3 KO, which I thought that Whittaker was going to catch de Ridder. De Ridder's got a very open striking stance, very open guard. And he often does get tagged heavy. And I just saw Whittaker landing something big in that third round that would either put him down and be finished with ground and pound or put him out completely. And to my credit, I got very, very close with this one. But it went to a split decision this fight, and Reinier de Ridder took it. I was wrong on this prediction. But it was a very, very close split decision. A lot of people are screaming robbery. I don't think that's the case. It was very, very close, and honestly, if either of them won, I wouldn't complain, but I don't think it was a robbery. So first round, strong start from Whittaker. He's constantly denying de Ridder's takedowns early on, dealing some damaging shots, especially on one of the takedown attempts from de Ridder where he nails him with this two-piece combo to the side of the head. And outside of a few knees from de Ridder, he didn't really throw much this round. He was constantly being tagged with straights and hooks from Whittaker that caused him to back up while not really firing back. So the first round, probably the clearest Whittaker round out of the whole fight. Second round, change in momentum. De Ridder starts to land more knees to the body of Whittaker, with one particular knee midway through the round, folding Whittaker over. It's not like a bone nickel that had him body shot TKO'd, but he wilted a little bit, where RDR used that chance to grapple with him, dominated him in the grappling, controlled Whittaker on the ground for most of the round. And while Whittaker was landing here and there, it was definitely a stronger round for de Ridder. He was landing some really big damage to the body, that sort of started to amount as the fight went on, and he was just landing a lot more than Whittaker and controlled him a bit in the grappling. So second round probably goes to de Ridder. In fact, definitely goes to de Ridder. Third round was starting to look like the second. De Ridder was getting Whittaker up against the cage, nailing him to the liver with knees. But as RDR pushes forward on Whittaker halfway through the round, he gets caught with this big overhand right that dropped him badly. He was on the brink of being out. You could just tell by the way he was sort of pulling guard. His head was sort of still swinging around a little bit. He was blinking sort of the unconsciousness away. And while Whittaker does try and follow up with some ground and pound that might have actually finished him, it wasn't really enough. He ends up getting trapped in the guard of Dorita. There is some controversy here though, because RDR did get caught sort of reaching inside the gloves of Whittaker while Whittaker was trying to ground and pound TKO him, which could have potentially inhibited his ability to finish him. I don't think so. I think he recovered enough by that point, but who knows? And the ref didn't really do a good job at sort of calling that out. But when you watch it back, you can definitely see Dorita reach into the gloves of Whittaker at that point. And while this round is likely Whittaker's, RDR did manage to rack up almost half a round in control time near the end. He got top position at the end of the round and just held it there. So there is an argument that you can make that RDR won this one, but it was a pretty close round. Round 4, another really strong round for RDR. This one was probably his as well. He was constantly kneeing to the body, which was starting to take its toll on Whittaker. You could look at it slowly sort of drain the energy out of him as the fight went on. He wasn't really throwing much back, and he was constantly getting backed up against the cage. And it was really Whittaker's lack of anything that lost him this round. He didn't throw back anything. He didn't land much. He was mainly just in survival mode, so it was 2 apiece going into the 5th for me. And in the 5th round, this was probably the closest round of the fight. Dorita continued with that knee that was working for him the whole fight, nailing Whittaker with body shots. He'd hit him with the occasional sort of jab cross combo or a weird hook or overhand on the feet, but it was mainly the knees. Whittaker did sort of pick it up here. He started firing back a bit more, but ultimately it went to the split decision. That 5th round was a very close round. I mean, 3 also was. So it was a kind of a nightmare to score this one, but Dorita just manages to take it. Honestly, if they scored for Whittaker, I wouldn't have argued. It was such a close fight that honestly, it was pretty much impossible to score decisively. Good win for Dorita. I can't see him fighting that much further up the rankings though after this performance. It was kind of a controversial one and didn't really prove much. I think maybe if he wants to fight up in Israel Adesanya, if Adesanya would take this matchup, I don't know if that's something that would interest Adesanya. I think he's trying to chase a Strickland rematch potentially. If not, maybe even have him fight down a little bit. Fight Brendan Allen, who's coming off a pretty good win over Vettori. Maybe that could be the next up for maybe a #1 contender shot after that. But man, RDR, he looked really good this fight, and I think he could potentially make his way to a belt. Or at least a shot at the belt. As for Whittaker, he just came up short here. Honestly, it was a pretty good performance from him. He did keep it competitive at points. It's just that he looked like he was just sort of struggling to deal with the height and reach and the knees, and the sort of very, very weird unorthodox striking from Dorita. He should probably fight down next fight. I don't actually know who. Maybe Vettori, maybe Costa again. I don't even know. It's kind of tough for Whittaker at the moment. But yeah, he didn't look horrific this fight. Just came up a bit short. So that's it, guys. That was UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Dorita, and a breakdown of everything that happened this card. How did we do? Pretty bad this week. I only got 50% of my predictions on who would win correct, and of those 50% of the win predictions, I only got the method by 50%, which, considering I only got 50% of the fights correct and only guessed 50% of the methods of those, bad week for me. Cam did a lot better. He got 75% of his predictions correct, including a clean sweep on the main card. All 5 picks correct. Very, very impressive for him here. Where would I rank this card? Originally, I was going to put it at the top of C. It was sort of a case where there was 1 or 2 really good fights, and then followed by 1 sort of average, if not a little bit dull fight. But overall, I think that the strong fights really carried it. There was a record-breaking fight. The main event was really solid. Co-main was probably one of the better co-mains on a fight night I've seen in a while. And consistently, there were just really fun fights that got dragged down a little bit, but overall, very solid card. So I'm going to actually put it at the bottom of B tier. It was a very good card. It wasn't really that average, I'd say, like most of the C tier ones. This one was actually pretty solid. So yeah, this card stacked, very, very impressive. We actually lost one of the best fights on the card, and it still was really good. Next week, UFC Fight Night, well, it was supposed to be Albazi versus Tyra. I've actually seen recently that it might not be. I think the main event got cancelled for that, so we'll see what it is next week. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week with the prediction video for whatever that fight night turns out to be. And yeah, bye-bye.